Hello there. Welcome to Scatter Plots and Predictions with Mr. Hawkins. So, let's get started. This is all about trend lines, what they actually do, and why they are useful, and how you're going to be using them in your project later on. So, when scatter plots demonstrate a linear relationship, remember, linear means a straight line, can be used to show the general pattern of the data. A trend line, or line of best fit, is a straight line that should lie as close as possible to the points of the data in the scatter plot. So, to give you an example of this, for 1 through 4, we're going to write yes or no to describe whether the trend line is a good fit. Now, you can see I've already done this with a possible explanation, and I will go through them really quick. So, this line, they decided to write this way. And no, this is not a good trend line because the association is positive, but the trend line has a negative slope and is not close to the points, all of the points. It's close to maybe these two, but nothing else. So in number 2, they drew the trend line through the center of the points. And yes, the trend line, this is a good predictor trend line. It lies close to the data points. It has the same slope as the association. It's negative. And it would be a good predictor of data. Now, for number 3, you know how we said it needs to be close to the majority of the points? Well, that's why this is not a good trend line, because it is close to the top of the points, but not the middle and the bottom of the points. So it's above most of the points in the data. And similarly, in number 4, this trend line is below most of the points in the data. So when drawing trend lines, you just draw a straight line through the majority of the clustered points. This line will help you make a good predictor of what you should be looking at when you make predictions in the future. And you're going to have to make one of these anyway when you look at stock market data. So let's look at number 5. Use the data shown at the right to answer A through C. Describe the association of the data. So here we see the points are all clustered, and we see it's a positive, strong association. And it's linear too, because it's a straight line. Sketch the trend line on the graph. So if we look here, we can see the trend line, the line of best fit, will go through the majority of the points, and it won't be above or below the majority of the points. It kind of goes straight on right through. Now, it's okay if it doesn't hit every point. I mean, look at this line. It only hits maybe 3 or 4 of the points, but it's still close enough to the points to be considered a good estimator. Maya wants to predict the value of y when x equals 10. So after you do your trend line, you can make that prediction. How might the trend line you drew be helpful? Well, if you look at here, you can see the value of x is down here, and we can draw the trend line and look at the value of the line when this is 10. And we can see that it's just under 45, so it might be 44 or 43 even. So you could say the value of y might be 44 or 43. If you use trend lines, that would be close enough to get you pointed in the right direction. All right, Let's go to the one without all the answers, because that helps me with the note part, but not much with the other parts. Oh, we're going to do that next. Okay, cool. Scatter plots and predictions. No, we're not there yet. Oh, wait, yes, we are. Okay, we're right here. Sketch a trend line on the graph, then use it to find the trend of the lines to help make predictions. So remember, a good trend line has to go through the center of the trend, all of your data points, and it has to be close to the majority of your points. It can't be above your points, and it can't be below most of your points. And so that's what we're going to look for when we draw a trend line. So in number 6, we're going to make sure that this trend line runs through the majority of our points, and it's not too high and it's not too low. Now, if you can remember from last lesson, we had a name for when points got too far from our line. And so this one lesser so, but it's still there. And this one definitely, but these are called outliers because they're the oddballs of the group. If you see any outliers, don't try to force it in your line. You can just ignore it because the majority of your data falls within this line. So I'm going to make another trend line. It looks like the trend is going this way. And remember, we want it to pass through the majority of our points, and it looks like a good line is this. Now, trend lines aren't super exact, but if you make a good trend line, there's some margin of error. So like, I would say you could also argue that this might be a good trend line. Either one might work. But I'm going to stick with this one because I think this one looks good. So, and then I'm going to draw the trend line for the other one. So I think that this looks good, and that's going to be my trend line for this problem. So this first one says predict the value of y when x is 7. So I'm going to draw a line straight up from x equaling 7. And I'm going to be like, okay, my trend line is around 40 when x is 7. So I'm going to say, okay, it's 40. So here it says predict the value when it's 10. Draw a line straight up at 10. Draw a line straight over. Boop. And you could say, okay, maybe that's almost 11. So maybe 10.5. That's pretty close. And then here, predict the value of y when it's 30. Draw a line straight up at 30. Draw a line straight over. And we can predict the value is slightly above 75, maybe in between 75 and 100. So maybe 85, maybe 8, maybe 90. I would say closer to 85. I would say like here's 95 and there's 100. So really, really easy to make predictions once you have your trend lines in place. You just look at, draw your trend line, and then you look at the x value, and then you're like, oh, that's the y value at my trend line. All right, I'll do the first one with you, and then you guys can do the last two. The scatter plot shows the age of several young polar bears and their weight in pounds. Use the graph to answer A through C. So predict the age of the polar bear that weighs 50 pounds. So first we're going to make our trend line. Make sure it's not too far above like this. and not too far below like this, because you want to be hitting the majority of your points. Then you're going to use your predicting factor. So it says weighs 50 pounds, and then you're going to draw a line straight down. And we're going to say this polar bear is around 5 months old. Predict the weight of a polar bear at 10 months. So we're going to do the same thing, 10 months, straight over. Oh, maybe like here. And maybe that's around 97 pounds, 96 pounds, around there. You can kind of guesstimate from that. A polar bear weighs 42 pounds, and Jamie estimates that the bear is between 4 and 5 months old. Is his estimation reasonable? Why or why not? So we're going to look at 4. That's around 40. And 5, that's around 50. And we're going to look at the range between those two estimations. So 40 looks like it's 4 months, and 5 looks like it's 50. So we can say, yeah, it's reasonable. 4 and 5 months, 42 falls within that range. Sure. So I'll let you guys try 10 and 11. And I hope you learned a little bit about trend lines and using trend lines to make estimations. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in class, as always. Thank you so much. Looking forward to helping you again.